you salty sailors, time to raise anchor and set sail for your best scrawny life. Arrgh.
So this is in the general vicinity of the Big Creek spillway, a little in the Saylorville area, a little in Big Creek. I think in this video I'll not post the Latin binomials and names, and we'll just see how you do. It's kind of a quiz. What family do you think this mushroom belongs to? Well, it has that sponge-like pore surface underneath the cap, so that is probably a bolete mushroom, family Boletaceae. Notice that fleshy pink color the pore surface has. So these mushrooms are probably in the genus Tylopolis. Now these are kind of yellow. They're funnel-shaped or vase-shaped. What family would that be? Well, it's a little complicated. These are in the order Chanterelles, that funnel or vase shape giving the order its name. You'll also notice the false gills, the thickened blunt ridges rather than the paper-thin radial gills. So these actually belong to the family Hydnaceae, the toothed fungi. Genus Chanterelles. These are, of course, chanterelle mushrooms. The fact that they're also emerging through the ground indicates that they're mycorrhizal in nature. They exist by forming associations with trees. Most of the large mushrooms we'll see here are mycorrhizal species. Now here's a species that, although yellow, is quite different in structure from the previous one. It has more of a cap and stem type of structure. You can tell there was a ring or annulus around the stem. So could this be in the family Amanitaceae, the family of Amanita mushrooms? Paper thin gills, cap and stem structure, annulus around the stem. Now this mushroom comes from a family we haven't discussed very much, but you can see the gills are producing a rusty brown type of spore dust. And these mushrooms are likely in the same family. They'll have that brown, that rusty brown look to the gills once they're mature. So these are likely in the family Cortinariaceae, the web caps referring to the cortina that once protected the developing gills. This mushroom, with its pale, chalky, somewhat brittle stem, belongs to the family Russulaceae, the brittle stems. Notice the true paper-thin gills, whereas these mushrooms again have that spongy pore surface belonging to the family Boletaceae, the bolete mushrooms. Now, we are observing here a blue stain when the flesh of the mushroom makes contact with oxygen in the air. So those are likely due to the brown cap, the red stem, and that blue stain. Those are likely in the family Boletaceae, in the genus Lanmaua, and these are likely the species Lanmaua pseudosensibilis. That is, the stain does not develop as rapidly as it does in sensibilis itself, therefore the name pseudosensibilis. Now, many of the characteristics of this mushroom are quite variable. The degree of staining on the pore layer, on the flesh layer, the degree to which the cap is brown or tan, or perhaps reddish brown, and so forth, are all quite variable, and there are other look-alike species that very closely resemble this species. So it's going to be difficult to make a 100% certain identification. I believe that these are Lanmaua pseudosensibilis, but as I said, it's going to be difficult in this case to be 100% certain. Now, here's a mushroom, again in the family Boletaceae, quite different though. Here we see it has that sort of long, longicurvate style stem, but I think this is actually Leccinellum quercophilum, the oak-loving small leccinum. Now, what could these be? A purple mushroom, sort of a violet to indigo purple. Do you see any clues around the margin of the cap as to what family these strange mushrooms might belong? Have a close look right around the edge of the cap. Perhaps if we turn one over here, it will become more apparent. So here you can see, notice on the stem, some rusty brown little hairs. Now those little hairs are the remnants of a cortina that once protected the young developing gills, and having torn away from the cap as the cap expanded, they just hang down from the stem now, and they've accumulated some rusty brown spore dust as the gills matured and began producing spores. So these are mushrooms in the family Cortinariaceae, likely in the genus Cortinarius, but that family has undergone some taxonomic revision. It's difficult to say if these are even in the genus Cortinarius, but certainly in the family Cortinariaceae. Now, these mushrooms are not mycorrhizal. They're not emerging from the ground. They're emerging from dead wood. These are perhaps, so therefore these are a saprotrophic mushroom rather than mycorrhizal. Pleurotaceae family, genus Pleurotus, the oyster mushrooms. Now, these mushrooms were back to the mycorrhizal mushrooms emerging from the ground. Notice, rather than radial gills or a spongy pore surface, these have denticles under the cap. So we're back to the toothed fungus family, the family Hydnaceae. These, however, are genus Hydnum, possibly Hydnum rufescens on those earlier ones. Here we see the denticles, the teeth under the cap, indicative of the genus Hydnum and also the family Hydnaceae. Here perhaps we can get a closer look at those denticles, or here are the more mature caps. You can see the enlarged, very enlarged now, the very close up of the denticles. Now, once more, we are within the family Hydnaceae, strangely enough. These funnel-shaped, vase-shaped mushrooms, order Chanterelles, of course, family Hydnaceae. But these, of course, are a genus that we have not encountered yet, not Hydnum and not Chanterelles. These are Craterellus, the black trumpets. Likely Craterellus phallax, the small black trumpet mushrooms. So order Chanterelles, family Hydnaceae, genus Craterellus. So if you know where that is, you'll know we're close to the Big Creek spillway. I went down there after looking for some mushrooms. I was actually given this wiper. I just wanted one decent fish for a cookout, and the person who gave it to me wanted me to move off the wall, the good spot. Now, I have most of the things necessary for a risotto, although we're a bit lacking in the stock department, so after removing the gills, I'm going to use the head of that fish, as well as some Monarda fistulosa, the bee balm. We'll sort of use that and a little bit of a store-bought stock that I had at home to build our stock. Not ideal, but it's what I had handy, and it's a hot summertime, so it's a really not a great time to be boiling down a bunch of stock at home. So we're just sort of slapping things together as far as the stock goes. We're going to toast our rice on the coals here for a minute. and then we'll add some olives and so forth. Now we've already sautéed our mushrooms along with some onions and set them aside. I kept some of those Leccinellum quercophilum, those bolete mushrooms, and I also kept some of the black trumpets. So we've sautéed those with the onions, set them aside, and we've also set aside our stock. Now once the rice has been toasted, we've put in, and our wine has, all the alcohol is boiled off. We've put in the stock. Now it's boiled for probably 15 minutes or so to soften the rice, and there we've added just a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese and stirred that in. That, along with the starch that's come out of the rice, will give it that creamy consistency, that texture that's typical of risotto. And of course we'll put some Parmigiano Reggiano on top. And needless to say, that turned out completely delicious. Now, salt grilled fish is pretty much exactly what you think it is. Here I'm telling the story of how I was given the fish. The other fellow, he was using a little lighter jig, and I think he just cast out and let it swing in the current. And I was trying to jig up and down. Well, the next thing you know, he had a fish on, and so he gave it to me just to get me to move off the spot, I think. So anyway, it worked out for both of us. And there's a risotto along with a wild mushroom risotto along with a salt grilled fish. And top it off with a few choke cherries, and we're all done for dinner. Now I'm making an art object. This will probably be a reoccurring theme in the next several videos. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've kind of tossed around the idea. The idea has evolved and morphed and changed quite a bit. Well, eventually you just have to go for these sorts of things. I'm not really going to even attempt to describe what it is. You'll see as the thing develops. Here we're just sanding down some little weights and slapping on a little bit of teak oil will give these little knobs an oil finish. They are Osage orange driftwood that I picked up. That it's possibly hundreds of years old, because it's old enough that the sapwood has completely disappeared. Only the heartwood of the Osage orange is left. It's aged so long that it's kind of developed that golden brown sort of luster to it. Really attractive looking, and a very hard, dense grained wood, and really takes the oil shine quite well. So we'll have those. Those will just be some little knobs made of Osage orange. Now I'm also working on a little decoy. Now that's a piece of American Hophornbeam. We've discussed that earlier. Only the sapwood is spalted. The heartwood apparently is so dense that even fungal hyphae have difficulty making it through there. So only the sapwood is spalted, so I'm not going to carve a bunch of detail deeply into it. I just want to preserve as much as possible nature's artwork, the spalting that's taken place in the sapwood there. So we've got a body, we've got a head, and they're both just going to be kind of roughly shaped to preserve as much as possible the spalting. So we'll shape this head down a little bit more. It's a little too big yet in proportion to the body, so we need to make the whole head smaller. But I want to preserve, especially along the back of the head, that spalting there. We're going to preserve that, so we're basically moving the front of the head kind of back towards the back part, and trying not to damage that black line spalting we have back there. Now most decoys are painted to resemble various species of ducks, such as mallard drake, of course, has that green head, and I could use oil paint and mix it with the oil finish and so forth to stain the head a certain color and everything, but it's going to darken up quite a bit just with when the oil hits it anyway. So I think I'm just going to paint the eyes and not paint any of the rest of it. Just simply leave it as it is, and we'll try to show off nature's artwork as much as possible.